It was supposed to be just another gala, an event to celebrate my wife, Eliza, and her burgeoning art career. The night air was thick with the scent of musk and unspoken tension as I entered the grand hall. Eliza, radiant in her emerald gown, glided through the crowd, her smile infectious. But something felt off. The laughter seemed forced, the lights a bit too bright. I watched her charm everyone around her, but a nagging doubt clawed at my insides. The first hour dragged as I mingled with the city's elite, my eyes never straying far from her. Then I saw him, Jack Thompson, the notorious art critic known for his roguish charm. He leaned against a marble pillar, a sly smile on his lips as he whispered something into Eliza's ear. My heart raced with a mix of anger and betrayal. I needed proof. I excused myself to the restroom, staring into the mirror, my mind racing. I couldn't just confront her. I needed a plan. I reached out to my old friend, Leo, a private investigator who thrived in the shadows. I need you to dig up everything on Jack Thompson, I said, urgency lacing my voice. Leo understood the stakes and promised to gather intel. Days passed, and I received a flood of information about Jack High's past affairs, his penchant for ruining marriages, and a few less, and legal dealings. I was determined to turn that chaos against him. I organized a private showing of Eliza's latest artwork, framing it as a networking opportunity and making sure to invite Jack. It was the perfect setup. As the night of the showing arrived, I watched Eliza move through the gallery, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing. Jack arrived, radiating confidence, and I casually dropped hints to key critics about his rumored affairs. Whispers began to circulate, and I could see Eliza's facade start to crack as she and Jack grew bolder in their flirtation. Just as I planned, I pulled Leo aside. He had been gathering information throughout the evening, his expression grim. Jack's involved in a smuggling ring. He's been using art as a front. My heart raced. This was more than I had bargained for. With a faint casualness, I approached Eliza and Jack, joining their conversation. Did you hear about the latest scandal surrounding Jack? I asked, my smile unwavering. Eliza's confusion was palpable. What scandal? She asked, glancing between us. I leaned in, lowering my voice. Apparently, he's been using the art world for something a little less? Little. The color drained from Eliza's face as Jack tried to dismiss my words, but I saw the panic flicker behind his eyes. The night spiraled from there. Eliza, caught between fear and guilt, confronted Jack as guests watched, whispers growing louder. In that moment, I felt a surge of satisfaction. But then the story took a darker turn. Leo had been gathering intel on Jack's smuggling operation, and the authorities were closing in. Just as Eliza confronted Jack, officers burst through the doors, handcuffs at the ready. Jack Thompson, you're under arrest for possession and distribution of stolen art, the lead officer declared, and chaos erupted in the gallery. Eliza stood frozen, a mix of shock and horror on her face. I felt a pang of something was a guilt. She had betrayed me, but now she was facing the consequences of her choices. I had won, but at what cost? In the days that followed, the scandal made headlines, thrusting Eliza into the limelight. She reached out, pleading for us to talk, to make sense of everything. But I was done being the victim. I found myself at a crossroads. I could expose her further, or I could orchestrate her redemption. As I stood in the empty gallery, contemplating my next move, I realized revenge had consumed me. But I was also teetering on the edge of something darker. I had plans, dark, intricate plans that would keep the game alive. Eliza may have thought she could return to normal, but I was determined to make sure she understood the depth of her betrayal. The dance of revenge had only just begun. What would happen next? Would I allow Eliza a chance at redemption, or would I drag us both down with the weight of this chaos? Eliza was a pariah in the art world, her career teetering on the brink of ruin. I watched as the fallout spiraled, each headline a dagger that twisted deeper into our marriage. But amidst the chaos, a darker seed was planted in my mind. Revenge wasn't enough. I wanted to dismantle everything Eliza had built, piece by piece. As I pondered my next move, Leo contacted me with surprising news. I've been digging deeper into Jack Thompson's connections, he said, his voice heavy with gravity. He's not just a critic, he's linked to an international smuggling operation that spans several countries. We could expose the entire network. I felt a thrill of adrenaline course through me. This could be my opportunity to turn the tables not just on Jack, but on Eliza as well. She had chosen him after all. I needed to use her connection to draw out the others involved. My plan began to take shape. I would travel to Europe, where the smuggling ring was most active, and leverage Eliza's contacts in the art world to gather intel. I presented the idea to Eliza as if I were doing it for her benefit, suggesting that a change of scenery might help her recover from the scandal. Reluctantly, she agreed, her face pale and drawn, but the flicker of hope in her eyes was unmistakable. She wanted to salvage her reputation, and I planned to use that desire against her. We arrived in Paris, a city of light and shadows, and immediately I started to dig deeper into the art circles. I suggested we visit high-profile galleries and auctions, hoping to draw out Jack's associates. Eliza, eager to re-establish her footing, dove headfirst into the art scene, introducing me to her contacts as her supportive husband. It wasn't long before I caught wind of an upcoming clandestine auction rumored to feature stolen pieces of art that was part of Jack's illicit dealings. The auction was being held in a luxurious mansion on the outskirts of the city, an event cloaked in secrecy. I could feel the pieces of my plan coming together, but I needed Eliza to unknowingly help me gain entry. As we mingled in Paris, I planted subtle suggestions about the auction, gauging her reactions. When I finally mentioned it outright, her eyes lit up with excitement. "We have to go! This could be my big break," she insisted, oblivious to my true motives. On the night of the auction, the mansion was a spectacle of wealth and opulence. I watched as Eliza dazzled the crowd, her charm on full display. She was in her element, but I felt the darkness of my intent creeping in. This was the moment of reckoning, the night where I would unveil her betrayal not just to me, but to the world. As the auction began, I slipped away, searching for evidence of Jack's involvement. I found myself in a dimly lit room filled with priceless artwork, each piece echoing the history of those who had loved and lost. I rifled through documents left unattended, my heart racing as I uncovered contracts linking Jack to several stolen masterpieces. Suddenly, I heard footsteps. I ducked behind a large canvas just as Jack entered the room, his demeanor casual but his eyes sharp. He was not alone. Eliza followed him in, her expression unreadable. They began discussing a piece that had caught her eye, but the conversation quickly turned into something more intimate. My heart raced as I eavesdropped, their laughter echoing in the silence. "Do you think they'll ever really find out?" Jack asked, a dangerous glint in his eye. Eliza's response was soft, almost conspiratorial. "As long as we play our cards right, they won't suspect a thing." I felt as if the ground had shifted beneath me. The betrayal was deeper than I had imagined. They weren't just involved in a fleeting affair, they were partners in crime. My pulse quickened, a mix of fury and desperation swelling inside me. This was not just about love, it was about the very essence of trust that had been shattered. I slipped away, barely containing my rage. My plan needed a new angle. Instead of exposing them, I could manipulate the situation further. I gathered the evidence I had found, ready to turn it against both of them. I knew I had the power now, but I also realized that I could use Eliza's ambitions to my advantage. In the following days, I laid a trap. I leaked a rumor about the auction and its stolen pieces to the press, knowing that it would circulate quickly through the art world. Eliza, desperate to clear her name, would feel compelled to confront Jack, pushing him further into the corner. I would be there to document everything, ready to reveal the truth at the most opportune moment. The day came when Eliza confronted Jack, and I watched from the shadows. She accused him of dragging her down with him, her voice shaking with fury. "You think I'm just another pawn in your game?" she shouted. Jack, ever the smooth talker, tried to calm her, but I could see the cracks forming in his confidence. "Look, we're in this together," he said, but I could sense the desperation in his tone. Eliza's resolve was wavering, and in that moment I stepped out of the shadows. "You're both in this together, aren't you?" I said, my voice low and steady. Their eyes widened, and I felt a surge of power as they realized the game was far from over. "What do you want?" Eliza snapped, her bravado faltering. "Everything," I replied, my tone chilling. "You both need to understand the consequences of your choices. I have evidence of your little operation, Eliza. If you don't cooperate, I'll make sure it all comes crashing down." The tension was thick as I laid out my terms. Eliza would help me dismantle Jack's smuggling ring from the inside, using her art connections to infiltrate the very people who had brought them together. In return, I would protect her reputation and ensure she would not be implicated. As we formed an uneasy alliance, I could see Eliza wrestling with her own emotions. She was caught between her ambition and the remnants of our marriage. I had turned her betrayal into a weapon, but I also knew I was putting her life at risk. Days turned into weeks as we worked together, but the more time we spent, the more I struggled with my feelings. I saw glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, but they were always tinged with the knowledge of her betrayal. Meanwhile, Leo kept feeding me intel, and the operation was coming closer to the surface. The night of the final auction was upon us, the stakes higher than ever. I had coordinated everything. The authorities would be waiting in the wings to swoop in once we had gathered enough evidence against Jack and his associates. Eliza and I walked into the mansion, a united front, but the tension between us crackled like electricity. As the night progressed, I watched as Eliza maneuvered through the crowd, her charm once again captivating. I was proud of her, but it felt like a betrayal of my own. Was I falling for her again even after everything? When the time came to enact our plan, we cornered Jack, revealing our hand. "This ends tonight," I declared, pulling out the evidence I had gathered. But as I prepared to call the authorities, Jack's expression shifted from fear to something more dangerous. "You think you've won?" he sneered, glancing at Eliza. "You're both playing a dangerous game. You have no idea who you're dealing with." Before I could react, chaos erupted. Jack's associates flooded the room, and I realized too late that I had underestimated his reach. The police hadn't been alerted, and we were trapped. In the ensuing turmoil, Eliza grabbed my hand, panic in her eyes. "We need to get out," she urged, but I was frozen by the reality of the situation. The betrayal, the lies, everything had led to this moment. As we fought our way through the crowd, I felt torn. Could I trust her? Did I still want to save her after everything? I turned back to face her, desperation in my voice. "What do we do?" She hesitated, her eyes darting between me and the chaos. "We have to trust each other," she said, her voice firm. "I know how to navigate this world. Follow me." In that instant, I realized that we were both trapped in a web of deceit. Her betrayal was not just a flaw, it had become our shared burden. We could either fall together or rise from the ashes. As we fled into the night, the sirens wailing behind us, I knew that this was only the beginning. Our alliance was fraught with uncertainty, but the fire of revenge had morphed into something else. Would we emerge as survivors, or would the shadows of our past consume us both? The journey ahead was unclear, the stakes higher than ever. With the criminal underworld looming and our trust hanging by a thread, we raced into the unknown, ready to confront whatever came next. The lines between love, betrayal, and redemption blurred, leaving me to question, could we ever truly escape our pasts? As we fled into the Parisian night, the sirens echoed behind us, a haunting reminder of the chaos we had just escaped. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of adrenaline and confusion swirling within me. Eliza's hand felt warm in mine, yet I was acutely aware of the fractures in our relationship, the trail that had led us to this moment. We ducked into a narrow alley, the scent of rain-soaked pavement filling the air. "What now?" I asked, breathless. Eliza's face was a mask of determination, but I could see the fear lurking in her eyes. "We need to get to the embassy," she replied, glancing back toward the street where shadows shifted. "They can help us. We can't stay in Paris." The thought of the embassy felt like a lifeline, but I hesitated. "What about Jack? He'll come after us." She nodded, biting her lip. "We'll have to use what we know against him. I have contacts in London who can help us get out of this mess. But we need to act fast." Before I could respond, Eliza pulled me deeper into the alley, her urgency propelling us forward. We emerged onto a quieter street, where a car awaited. A tall figure leaned against the vehicle. Milo, one of Eliza's old friends and a known fixer in the art world. His presence brought a sense of safety, but also a reminder of the murky depths of our situation. "Get in," he urged, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting trouble. "We don't have much time." We climbed into the back seat, the doors locking with a reassuring click. "Where to?" Milo asked, his eyes flicking between us. "Eliza's contacts in London," I said, trying to sound confident. "We need a safe place to regroup." As Milo sped through the streets, I stole glances at Eliza. The light from the street lamps illuminated her features, and I felt a mix of anger and longing. She had betrayed me, but I could also see the fear and determination in her eyes. It struck me that we were both trapped in this web together, and somehow, we needed to find a way out. London. Hours later, we arrived at a nondescript building in London, far removed from the glitz and glamour of the art world. Inside, we were greeted by Sophia, a shrewd dealer who had long been an ally of Eliza's. Her sharp gaze assessed us, and I felt a twinge of distrust. "What happened?" she demanded, ushering us into a small, dimly lit office. "I heard rumors about the auction going south." Eliza took a deep breath, recounting the events that had unfolded in Paris, omitting certain details that I could sense were still too raw for her to share. Sophia listened, nodding, but her expression remained inscrutable. "We need a plan," I said, stepping forward. "Jack's network is dangerous. He'll come after us, and we have to strike first." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Jack isn't just a critic, he has connections in high places. Going after him could bring the whole operation down on us." Eliza interjected, her voice firm. "We can't hide forever. If we don't act, we'll be the ones caught in the crossfire. I have connections who might help us gather intel." Sophia studied her, then nodded. "Fine, but we need to be cautious. I have a contact in the underground art scene. She might know more about Jack's operations. We can meet her tonight, but you need to be on your guard." That evening, we ventured into the gritty heart of London, a world far removed from the elegance of galleries. The air was thick with the scent of damp concrete and danger. We found ourselves in a dimly lit bar where the walls pulsed with the rhythm of a hidden underworld. Sophia introduced us to Lena, a wiry woman with sharp features and an air of mischief. I hear you're looking for information on Jack Thompson, she said, leaning back in her chair, a playful glint in her eye. Eliza nodded, tension radiating from her. He is running a smuggling operation, and we need to know how deep it goes. Lena's smile faded. Jack's not just a critic. He is linked to some serious players, art thieves, smugglers, you name it. If you want to take him down, you'll need more than just whispers in the wind. I leaned forward. What do you suggest? Lena paused, considering. There's a gala happening in Berlin next week, a major auction. Jack will be there, and so will his associates. If you can infiltrate that event, you might gather enough evidence to expose him. Eliza exchanged a glance with me, her determination reigniting. We have to go. This could be our chance. Berlin. The days flew by as we prepared for the Berlin Gala. I felt a sense of purpose, but beneath it all lay a current of unease. Eliza and I were slipping into roles of deception, both of us knowing that trust was a fragile commodity. On the night of the gala, the venue shimmered with opulence. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting light onto the polished floors. Guests mingled, their laughter mingling with the strains of classical music. Eliza and I donned our finest attire, slipping into the crowd with practiced ease. As we navigated the room, I could feel the tension between us. The thrill of the hunt hung in the air, but so did the unspoken weight of our past. I could see Eliza's resolve, but also the remnants of her betrayal. Stay close, I whispered as we approached a group of art dealers. We can't lose sight of Jack. Minutes later, I spotted him across the room, laughing with a group of well-dressed elites. My heart raced. This was our chance. As Eliza moved to engage one of the dealers, I slipped away, heading toward Jack. I approached him, feigning casual interest. Jack, great to see you here. How is the art scene treating you? His smile faltered for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. Ah, the charming husband. You must be proud of Eliza's latest work. I grinned tightly. Proud, yes, but I hear there's a lot more to you than meets the eye. Rumors have been swirling about your connections in the art world. Jack's eyes narrowed slightly. Careful, my friend. Rumors can be dangerous. Before I could respond, Eliza's voice cut through the noise. Jack, there you are. I've been looking for you. She approached with a confident smile, but I saw the flicker of apprehension in her eyes. What do you want, Eliza? Jack asked, his tone icy. Just a chat. I've been hearing things I don't like, she replied, her voice steady. I want to know what you're really up to. The tension in the air crackled. Jack glanced at me, then back to Eliza. You shouldn't be involved in matters you don't understand. Try me, Eliza shot back, and I felt a rush of aberration mixed with dread. Our conversation drew the attention of others nearby, and I sensed a shift in the room. Jack's smile was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating expression. You're making a mistake, Eliza. You don't want to know what happens to those who dig too deep. The atmosphere shifted, a palpable tension that made my skin crawl. I felt like we were on the edge of a precipice, teetering dangerously close to chaos. Maybe I want to find out, Eliza replied defiantly. You think you can control everything, but you're just a pawn in this game. At that moment, the door swung open and a group of men entered, tall, imposing figures dressed in dark suits. Their presence sent a ripple of unease through the crowd. Jack's demeanor shifted, and I knew instantly that this was a dangerous turn. Eliza and I exchanged worried glances as Jack stepped closer to her, his voice low and menacing. You've really crossed a line this time. You should have stayed away. Suddenly, chaos erupted. The newcomers swept through the room, their eyes scanning the crowd, and I realized they were not here for the art. Jack's associates had come to collect debts, and we were caught in the crossfire. What? I shouted, grabbing Eliza's hand as we pushed through the crowd. We darted toward the back exit, adrenaline surging through us as the sounds of shouts and scuffles filled the air behind us. Outside, the cold night air hit us like a wall. We sprinted down the street, the sounds of chaos fading behind us. We turned a corner, breathless and panicked. What the hell just happened? I gasped, pulling Eliza to a halt. I don't know, she said, her eyes wide with fear, but we need to get out of here. They'll come after us. We needed a safe place, and fast. I remembered Sophia's offer of a safe house in London, but now we had to get there without attracting attention. We ducked into a nearby cafe, trying to blend in while we gathered our thoughts. Eliza took a deep breath, her hands trembling. What do we do now? Jack won't let this go. He'll come for us. We can't go back to London yet, I replied, scanning the room. We need to throw him off our trail. We could head to Berlin's outskirts and lay low for a bit. Eliza nodded, determination flickering in her eyes. Then let's move. We can't stay here. The aftermath, we made our way to a small hotel on the outskirts of Berlin, trying to remain inconspicuous. Days turned into a blur as we kept our heads down, constantly aware of the danger looming over us. But even in the shadows, the tension between Eliza and me simmered just beneath the surface. One night, as we sat in our dimly lit hotel room, I turned to her. "We need to talk about what happened at the gala. You were incredible, but it's like you were ready to provoke him." "What?" Eliza's gaze hardened. "Because I'm done being afraid. I won't let Jack control me anymore." I felt a mixture of admiration and worry, but that kind of defiance can get us killed. "We need to be strategic." "Strategic?" She scoffed. "Look where that got us. We're running, hiding, while he plays the game. I want to fight back." The intensity in her eyes was captivating, and for a moment I felt the pull of something deeper, something that had been masked by our betrayal. "What are you suggesting?" "Let's turn the tables. We find out everything we can about Jack's operation and expose him. If we can gather enough evidence, we can leverage it to get out of this mess doja." I hesitated, weighing the risks. But what if it backfires? What if we can't trust anyone? Eliza stepped closer, her voice low and urgent. "I need you to trust me. We're in this together, whether you like it or not." A dangerous alliance. We began to piece together a plan, reaching out to contacts and digging deeper into Jack's network. With Eliza's connections and my growing knowledge of the criminal underworld, we gathered intel on Jack's operations, plotting a course that would lead us to the heart of the smuggling ring. Each day brought new challenges, but with every piece of information we uncovered, I could see the fire rekindling in Eliza. We worked late into the night, poring over documents, tracing connections, and slowly building a case that would expose Jack and his associates. But as we delved deeper, I began to question my own feelings. I had watched Eliza transform from a victim of betrayal to a fierce warrior, and despite the darkness of our situation, I found myself drawn to her strength. The lines between love and revenge blurred, complicating everything. One evening, after a particularly intense day of work, we sat together in silence, the weight of our shared burdens hanging heavy in the air. I turned to her, vulnerability seeping through my defenses. "Do you think we can really trust each other? After everything?" Eliza's expression softened, the fire in her eyes dimming. "I don't know, but I want to try. I want to believe we can make it out of this together." In that moment, something shifted between us. The betrayals that had once driven a wedge now felt like a shared darkness, binding us closer. We leaned in, our lips brushing together hesitantly, and the kiss ignited a passion that had been simmering beneath the surface. But as the heat of the moment enveloped us, the reality of our situation crashed back in. We were still ensnared in a dangerous game, and Jack's shadow loomed larger than ever. The final showdown. We continued our investigation, and as our findings coalesced into a coherent narrative, we knew it was time to confront Jack once and for all. We arranged a meeting in a secluded warehouse outside Berlin, a place where we could lay everything on the line. The night of the confrontation, a storm brewed in the sky, mirroring the tension in the air. Eliza and I arrived early, our hearts pounding as we waited. We had set the stage for an explosive showdown, armed with evidence that could take Jack down. When he finally arrived, flanked by his associates, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. "What to this?" Jack sneered, his confidence unshaken. "You think you can play me?" Eliza stepped forward, her voice steady. "We know everything, Jack. About the smuggling, the connections, everything." He laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "You're out of your depth, Eliza. You have no idea who you're dealing with." In a flash, I pulled out the documents we had gathered, the evidence that could destroy him. "This ends tonight, Jack. You're going down." For a moment, silence enveloped the room, the tension thick enough to cut. Jack's expression darkened, and I could sense the shift in the air. "You think this will save you?" he hissed. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." Suddenly, the warehouse door burst open, and armed men flooded in. Jack's backup, ready for a fight. Chaos erupted as shots rang out, and Eliza and I scrambled for cover. In the ensuing chaos, I lost sight of Eliza. The world became a blur of noise and confusion as I fought to stay alive. I could hear Jack's voice in the distance, taunting and furious, but I couldn't focus on him. My priority was finding Eliza. I pushed through the fray, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Finally, I spotted her crouched behind a stack of crates, her eyes wide with fear. "Eliza!" I shouted, rushing to her side. "We have to get out," she cried, pulling me close as gunfire echoed around us. This was a trap. Just then, a loud crash resonated from the far end of the warehouse as a wall of crates collapsed, sending debris flying. In that moment of chaos, Jack's men scattered, and I seized the opportunity. "We need to move," I urged, grabbing her hand and pulling her toward the exit. As we ran, the world around us seemed to slow. I could hear Eliza's breath quickening, her fear palpable. "What if we don't make it?" she gasped. "We will," I promised, determination igniting within me. We're getting out of this together. We burst through the doors just as the last of the gunfire echoed behind us. The rain poured down, drenching us as we sprinted into the night. I could hear sirens in the distance, but they felt like a distant hope. A new beginning after what felt like hours. We finally reached Safety, a small, nondescript hotel in a quiet part of the city. We collapsed onto the bed, breathing heavily, adrenaline still coursing through our veins. The danger was still real, but for the moment, we were safe. Eliza looked at me, her expression a mix of fear and relief. "What now?" she asked, her voice trembling. I took a deep breath, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. "We need to lay low for a bit, regroup, and then we can figure out our next steps." As we sat together in the dim light, the weight of our shared experiences hung heavy in the air. "Do you really think we can take him down?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," I admitted, "but we have to try. For ourselves." Eliza reached out, her fingers intertwining with mine. "I can't believe we're in this together. After everything?" I nodded, knowing that our shared journey had forged an unexpected bond. "I never expected this either, but here we are." Just then, my phone buzzed, interrupting the moment. I glanced at the screen, my heart sinking. It was a message from Leo. "I've heard rumors about Jack's retaliation. You need to be careful." Eliza's gaze sharpened. "What does it say?" I hesitated, knowing that the path ahead was fraught with danger. "It's about Jack. He's not done with us yet." Eliza's grip tightened around my hand, her resolve returning. "Then we'll fight together." In that moment, I realized the complexities of our relationship. We were entwined in a dangerous dance of love and betrayal, and the outcome was still uncertain. As the storm raged outside, I knew we were on the brink of something monumental. Whether it would be salvation or destruction remained to be seen. We had come too far to turn back now, and together we would face whatever darkness lay ahead. The lines had blurred, and the story was still unfolding. What would be the final act in our tangled tale? Only time would tell.